The Garden of Possibility, a journey into growth and manifestation. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Let the day fall away from your shoulders. Tonight, we're going on a journey together, a journey into the landscape of your own potential, where thoughts become things and limitations dissolve like morning mist. Imagine, if you will, that your mind is a garden. Right now, in this very moment, seeds are being planted. Some you've placed there consciously. Others have drifted in on winds you didn't notice. But here's something remarkable that neuroscientists discovered. Your brain doesn't actually distinguish between a thought you're having and an experience you're living. When you vividly imagine something, the same neural pathways light up as if it were happening right now. Your mind is that powerful. It treats your dreams as blueprints, not fantasies. This is why a basketball player who spends time visualizing perfect free throws alongside physical practice outperforms one who only practices physically. The brain is literally rehearsing success, carving channels in the neural landscape where achievement can flow. Now, let's talk about a word that might feel heavy: failure. For so long, we've been taught to fear it, to avoid it, to see it as an ending. But people with a growth mindset, those who consistently manifest the lives they desire, they've discovered something liberating. They understand that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the pathway to it. Every person you admire, every achievement you've celebrated, was built on a foundation of attempts that didn't work out as planned. The difference isn't that successful people don't fail. It's that they've learned to ask different questions when they do. Not why am I not good enough, but what can this teach me? This shift in perspective, this single reframe, changes everything. Because when you're no longer afraid of failure, you become willing to try. And when you're willing to try, you step into the current of possibility. As you lie here, breathing slowly, consider this: your beliefs about yourself aren't facts. They're habits. And habits, as you know, can be changed. For years, researchers studied two groups of students. One group was praised for being smart, for their innate ability. The other was praised for their effort, for their strategies, for trying hard. When both groups faced difficult challenges, something fascinating emerged. The students praised for being smart gave up more quickly. They'd internalized the belief that struggle meant they weren't actually smart after all. But the students praised for effort? They leaned in. They persevered. They'd learned that difficulty wasn't a sign of inadequacy, it was simply part of the process. Your internal narrative matters more than you might realize. The story you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell yourself, "I'm not creative," your brain will dutifully filter out evidence of your creativity and highlight evidence that confirms this belief. This is called confirmation bias, and it's one of the most powerful forces shaping your reality. But here's the beautiful part: you can work with this tendency instead of against it. When you consciously choose to tell yourself a different story, "I'm someone who's learning to be more creative," or "I'm discovering my creative voice," your brain begins searching for evidence of this new truth. And it will find it. Because the evidence was always there, you'd simply trained your mind to look elsewhere. This brings us to the heart of manifestation, which is so often misunderstood. Manifestation isn't magical thinking. It's not about wishing for $1 million and waiting for it to appear. True manifestation is about alignment. It's about bringing your thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and actions into harmony with what you desire. When you consistently hold a clear vision of what you want while taking aligned action, even small steps, you begin to notice opportunities you would have otherwise missed. You start making different choices. You show up differently in the world. And the world, in turn, responds differently to you. There's a psychological phenomenon called the reticular activating system, or RAS. It's a network of neurons in your brain that acts as a filter, deciding what information gets through to your conscious awareness. Have you ever bought a new car and then suddenly started seeing that exact model everywhere? The cars were always there, your RAS just started letting them through because they became relevant to you. When you set clear intentions and emotionally connect with your desires, you're programming your RAS to notice people, resources, and opportunities aligned with those intentions. You're not creating them out of thin air, you're finally seeing what was always available. And speaking of emotions, they're not obstacles to clarity, they're the fuel of manifestation. When you can feel what it would be like to have what you desire, when you can generate that feeling now, before the physical reality is caught up, you're sending a powerful signal to both your conscious and unconscious mind. You're essentially saying, this is where we're going. This is what we're moving toward. Let your breathing slow even further now. Feel the weight of your body against the surface beneath you. You are safe. You are exactly where you need to be. And from this place of rest, your mind is absorbing everything, planting seeds in that garden we talked about. Seeds of possibility. Seeds of growth. Seeds of a new story about who you are and what your life can become. Tomorrow is a blank page. And you're holding the pen. The river of change, flowing toward your future. As you sink deeper into relaxation, let's walk together along the banks of a river. This river represents change, and it's always flowing, always moving. You can't step into the same river twice, the ancient philosophers said, because new water is always flowing past. And the same is true for you. The person you were yesterday is not the person you are today. Every moment, your cells are regenerating, your neural pathways are reshaping, your story is being rewritten. Here's something that might surprise you. Scientists have discovered that our brains remain plastic, changeable, throughout our entire lives. For decades, we believed that after childhood, the brain became fixed, hardened like concrete. But neuroplasticity research has shattered this myth. A London taxi driver's brain physically grows in the regions responsible for spatial memory as they learn the complicated map of the city. A musician's brain reorganizes itself with practice. Your brain at 60 can learn new patterns just as it did at 6, it simply needs consistent practice and patience. You are never too old, never too far along your path, to grow in an entirely new direction. This is why the concept of yet is so transformative. When you catch yourself thinking, I can't do this, simply add one small word, yet. I can't do this yet. That single syllable opens a door that was previously closed. It transforms a statement of permanence into a statement of possibility. It acknowledges where you are while honoring where you're going. Now, let's talk about the energy you bring into each day. Have you noticed how some mornings you wake up and everything feels possible, while other mornings the world feels heavy before you've even left your bed? There's a practice that the most successful manifestors use, and it's deceptively simple. They design their morning mind. Before checking their phone, before diving into the demands of the day, they spend even just 5 minutes intentionally directing their thoughts. Because here's what research on habit formation tells us: the state you cultivate in the first hour of your day tends to echo through all the hours that follow. If you begin in reactivity, scrolling through news and other people's emergencies, your brain learns that life is something that happens to you. But if you begin with intention, even a few deep breaths and a clear thought about who you want to be today, you're training your brain to understand that life is something you participate in creating. This connects to something called environmental design in psychology. Your environment isn't just where you live, it's a constant silent conversation with your subconscious mind, reinforcing who you believe yourself to be. If you want to become someone who reads more, place books in visible places. If you want to become someone who moves their body, lay out your workout clothes the night before. These tiny adjustments in your physical space reduce friction for desired behaviors and increase it for undesired ones. You're essentially architecting your life so that the easiest path is also the path aligned with your growth. You're not relying on willpower alone, you're making the environment your ally. Breathe in slowly, and out. Feel how effortless your breath is when you allow it to be. You don't have to force it. It simply flows. And that's the paradox many people discover on this journey. Sometimes, the most powerful action is releasing control. There's a difference between setting intentions and strangling outcomes. When you plant a seed in soil, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You water it, you give it sunlight, and then you trust the process. The same is true for your dreams. There's a concept in manifestation called inspired action. This is action that comes from alignment, not anxiety. It's the difference between frantically chasing and confidently moving toward. When you're in alignment, the next step becomes obvious. You're not forcing doors open, you're noticing which ones are unlocking. Many people ask, but what about doubt? What about the voice that says this won't work, that I'm fooling myself, that nothing ever changes? That voice is normal, expected, even useful. Doubt isn't your enemy. It's simply your brain trying to protect you from disappointment, from standing out, from the vulnerability of wanting something deeply. The goal isn't to eliminate doubt. It's to stop giving it the final say. Think of your mind as a room with many voices, many parts. Doubt is one voice. But there's also the voice of your courage, your curiosity, your deepest knowing. Growth mindset doesn't mean never doubting, it means choosing which voice you'll follow, moment by moment, day by day. Consider the power of questions. Your brain is always seeking answers, always trying to solve the puzzles you present it with. So the questions you habitually ask yourself shape your entire experience. People who feel stuck often ask disempowering questions without realizing it. Why does this always happen to me? Why am I not further along? What's wrong with me? And their brilliant brain goes to work finding answers, answers that reinforce limitation. But what if you ask different questions? What's one small thing I could try? What would this look like if it were easy? What am I learning right now? Your brain would go to work on those puzzles instead, finding possibilities instead of problems, solutions instead of obstacles. There's a beautiful principle in physics that applies to your inner world too. Energy flows where attention goes. Whatever you focus on expands in your experience. This isn't mystical, it's practical. If you focus on what's going wrong, your brain will find more evidence of things going wrong, and you'll make decisions from a place of fear or scarcity. If you focus on what's working, even small things, the warmth of your blanket, the fact that you're breathing, a kind word someone offered, your brain will find more evidence of things working, and you'll make decisions from a place of trust and possibility. Let yourself soften even more. Let your jaw release. Let your shoulders drop. There's nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. Right now, simply by resting and receiving these words, you're rewiring your mind. You're choosing growth. You're choosing to believe that change is possible, that your best life isn't behind you but ahead of you, unfolding petal by petal like a flower that's been waiting for just the right moment to bloom. And that moment is always now. The mirror of becoming, reflecting your truest self. As you rest here, breathing gently, imagine standing before a mirror. But this isn't an ordinary mirror, it doesn't show you as you are in this moment. It shows you as you're becoming. Can you see that version of yourself? Not perfect, not without challenges, but whole. Aligned. Living the life you've been quietly building in your heart. There's something fascinating that happens when you begin to embody the person you're becoming, even before the external circumstances have fully shifted. Psychologists call this acting as if, and it's far more powerful than positive thinking alone. When you make decisions from the identity of your future self rather than your current circumstances, something shifts. A person who sees themselves as healthy doesn't have to force themselves to make healthy choices. Those choices become natural expressions of who they are. This is why identity-level change is more sustainable than behavior-level change. You're not white-knuckling your way through willpower, you're becoming someone for whom the desired behavior is simply who they are. Think about the people in your life, the ones you spend the most time with. There's a well-researched principle in social psychology: you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This isn't just about their habits rubbing off on you. It's deeper than that. The people around you shape what seems normal, what seems possible, what seems worth pursuing. If you're surrounded by people who believe growth is available at any age, you'll internalize that belief. If you're surrounded by cynicism and limitation, you'll have to work much harder to maintain your vision. This doesn't mean you abandon everyone who isn't on the same path, but it does mean being intentional about who has access to your energy, your dreams, your becoming. Sometimes growth requires creating boundaries that protect your emerging self. Let your breath slow even further. In and out. You are safe in this cocoon of rest. Now, here's a truth that often gets overlooked: consistency matters more than intensity. Our culture celebrates the dramatic transformation, the extreme makeover, the overnight success. But research on habit formation shows us something different. Small actions, repeated consistently over time, create compound effects that far exceed sporadic bursts of intense effort. If you write for 15 minutes every single day, you'll produce more, and better, work than if you write for 8 hours once a month. Your brain learns through repetition, through returning again and again to the practice. It's not the size of the action that matters most, it's the repetition of it. The showing up, day after day, even when it's not exciting, even when you can't see results yet. That's where transformation lives, in the unremarkable consistency that nobody sees. And speaking of what nobody sees, let's talk about patience. We live in a world of instant gratification, of next-day delivery, of streaming whatever we want whenever we want it. But meaningful growth operates on a different timeline. There's a concept from nature called the bamboo principle. When you plant Chinese bamboo, you water it and care for it, and for 5 years, you see nothing. No growth above the surface. It would be easy to assume nothing is happening. But beneath the soil, an intricate root system is developing, spreading, strengthening. Then, in the 6th year, that bamboo can grow up to 80 feet in just 6 weeks. The growth was always happening, it just wasn't visible yet. Your growth is like that bamboo. Just because you can't see the results yet doesn't mean nothing is happening. Every time you choose the growth-oriented thought over the limiting one, you're developing roots. Every time you take aligned action, even when you're tired, even when you don't feel like it, you're developing roots. The visible transformation will come, but it requires you to trust the invisible work you're doing right now. There's another powerful practice that people who successfully manifest their desires use. They cultivate gratitude for what already exists. This might seem counterintuitive, after all, aren't we focused on what we want to create? But here's what neuroscience tells us. Gratitude literally rewires your brain. When you regularly practice feeling grateful, you strengthen neural pathways associated with positive emotions and well-being. Your brain becomes more adept at noticing good things. More than that, gratitude generates a feeling of abundance, of already having enough. And when you feel abundant, you make different choices than when you feel scarce. You take opportunities because they excite you, not because you're desperate. You trust yourself to try new things because you know you'll be okay even if they don't work out. Gratitude isn't just a nice feeling, it's a strategic practice that shifts your entire operating system from lack to overflow. Soften your forehead. Release any tension in your hands. You are exactly where you need to be on your journey. Let's explore something subtle but significant, the stories you tell about your past. Your history isn't a fixed thing, it's a narrative you construct, emphasizing certain events and minimizing others, drawing certain conclusions about what things meant. Two people can experience the same childhood and tell completely different stories about it, which then shape completely different futures. This is why reframing your past isn't about denying what happened, it's about choosing which meaning you'll carry forward. That difficult period in your life, was it evidence that you're broken, or evidence that you're resilient? That relationship that ended, was it proof that you're unlovable, or proof that you have the courage to walk away from what isn't right? The facts remain the same, but the story changes everything. And when you change the story about your past, you change what feels possible in your future. Here's something that might bring you relief. You don't have to have it all figured out. One of the biggest obstacles people face on the path to growth is the belief that they need to know the entire journey before taking the first step. But that's not how any journey works. When you drive at night, your headlights only illuminate the road about 200 feet ahead. You can't see your final destination from the starting point. But you can see the next 200 feet. And that's enough. You move forward, and the next section reveals itself. Then the next. Your job isn't to know the whole path, it's to trust that the path will reveal itself as you walk it, one illuminated section at a time. And finally, let's talk about self-compassion. This might be the most important skill you can develop. Research shows that people who treat themselves with kindness when they struggle, rather than harsh criticism, are more likely to persist toward their goals. Self-compassion isn't self-indulgence, it's recognizing that you're human, that mistakes are part of learning, that you deserve the same kindness you'd offer a good friend. When you stumble, and you will stumble, the voice you use to speak to yourself in that moment will determine whether you get back up or stay down. Make it a kind voice. Make it a voice that says, "This is hard, and you're doing your best. Let's try again. Rest now." Let these truths settle into your bones. You are becoming. Every breath, every moment, every choice. The mirror is showing you someone magnificent, someone worthy, someone who is always there, just waiting for you to recognize them. And slowly, gradually, you are the garden keeper, tending your inner landscape. Picture yourself walking through that garden we imagined at the beginning of this journey. Look how much has already grown. Some seeds have sprouted without you even noticing. Others are still underground, gathering strength. You are the keeper of this garden, the tender of your own transformation, and tonight we're learning the gentle art of cultivation. There's a phenomenon that researchers have observed, something they call the fresh start effect. People are more likely to pursue their goals after temporal landmarks, the start of a new year, a birthday, a Monday, the first of the month. But here's the deeper truth: you don't actually need to wait for these arbitrary markers. Every single moment is a potential fresh start. Every breath is a chance to begin again. You can decide right now, in the middle of a random weeknight, in the quiet darkness of your room, that this is the moment everything shifts. The power of the fresh start isn't in the date on the calendar, it's in your decision to treat it as significant. You're not waiting for permission from time, you're granting yourself permission to begin. Now, let's explore something you might resist at first: the value of discomfort. Your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. Scientists studying peak performance have discovered something called optimal anxiety. It's the sweet spot just beyond your comfort zone where you're challenged enough to grow but not so overwhelmed that you shut down. When you deliberately place yourself in situations that stretch you slightly, your brain creates new neural connections. Your capacity expands. A muscle that's never challenged never grows stronger. A mind that's never challenged never grows wiser. This is why people who achieve extraordinary things aren't necessarily more talented. They're simply more willing to be uncomfortable. They've learned that the discomfort isn't a sign they're doing something wrong, it's a sign they're doing something new. Breathe deeply. Feel your chest rise and fall. Even your breath is a form of practice, of presence, of choosing to be here now. Let's talk about something practical: the power of tracking. There's a management principle that says what gets measured gets managed, and it applies beautifully to personal growth. When you track your progress, whether it's marking an X on a calendar for each day you meditate, or noting in a journal the moments you chose growth over comfort, you create visibility. You make the invisible visible. But here's what's even more powerful: tracking doesn't just measure change, it actually creates motivation. Each time you mark your progress, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine, the reward chemical. You're building a positive feedback loop. You're training your brain to associate your desired behavior with pleasure. This is why people who track their habits are significantly more likely to maintain them. You're not just observing your growth, you're celebrating it, reinforcing it, making it more likely to continue. And while we're discussing the practical, let's address something important: the role of rest. Our culture worships productivity, hustle, constant motion. But high performers in every field, athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, understand something crucial: rest is not the opposite of productivity, it's an essential component of it. Your brain consolidates learning during sleep. Your muscles repair during rest days. Your creativity emerges from spaciousness, not constant grinding. When you honor rest, you're not being lazy, you're being strategic. You're allowing the integration that makes all your effort worthwhile. Some of the most important work you do happens when you're not doing anything at all. Let your body sink deeper into stillness. This rest, right now, is productive. You are integrating. You are becoming. There's a concept from sports psychology called process goals versus outcome goals. An outcome goal is I want to lose 20 pounds or I want to earn 6 figures. A process goal is I will move my body for 30 minutes 5 times a week or I will apply to 3 new opportunities each week. Research consistently shows that people who focus on process goals, the actions within their control, are more successful than those who focus only on outcomes. Why? Because outcomes can feel overwhelming and distant, but processes are immediate and achievable. Each day you complete your process, you win. You build momentum. You prove to yourself that you're the kind of person who follows through. And over time, those process wins accumulate into outcome wins. But you're not white-knuckling your way to some distant finish line, you're finding satisfaction in the daily practice itself. Now, here's something that might surprise you: your body knows things your mind doesn't. We tend to think of growth and manifestation as purely mental activities. Change your thoughts, change your life. But your body holds wisdom too. That feeling in your gut when something's right or wrong? That's real intelligence. Your body processes information from your environment that your conscious mind hasn't noticed yet. This is why practices that integrate the body, movement, breathwork, even just placing your hand on your heart and taking 3 deep breaths, are so powerful for manifestation. You're not just thinking your way into a new reality, you're feeling your way there. When your body believes it's safe to grow, when it feels the emotions of your desired future, it becomes an ally in your transformation rather than something you're trying to override. Let your awareness drop into your body now. Notice how your shoulders feel. Your jaw. Your hands. Send appreciation to this vessel that carries you through each day. There's something called the Zeigarnik effect that reveals an interesting quirk of human psychology: we remember uncompleted tasks better than completed ones. Our brain doesn't like loose ends. It keeps uncompleted things active in our working memory, creating a subtle but persistent tension. You can use this to your advantage. When you stop working on something before it's completely finished, maybe you pause mid-sentence while writing, or you plan tomorrow's first step before you end today's work, your brain continues processing it in the background. You wake up with ideas you didn't consciously think through. This is why some of the most creative insights come in the shower or while walking. You're not actively trying to solve anything, but your brain is still working on that uncompleted loop. Leave yourself breadcrumbs. Give your subconscious something to work with while you rest. Here's a liberating truth: you don't have to earn your worth. You don't have to achieve a certain level of success before you're valuable. You don't have to wait until you've manifested your dreams to start treating yourself like someone worthy of those dreams. Your worth is inherent. It came with your first breath and it will leave with your last. Everything else, the achievements, the growth, the manifestation, is simply you expressing what was always true. When you internalize this, really internalize it, something profound shifts. You stop chasing from a place of trying to become enough, and you start creating from a place of already being enough. The desperate energy transforms into confident exploration. And ironically, this is when things start flowing more easily. Because you're no longer strangling outcomes with the energy of proving yourself. And finally, let's visit the concept of visualization one more time, but deeper. Effective visualization isn't just seeing the end result, it's mentally rehearsing the process, including the obstacles. Research on mental contrasting shows that people who visualize both their desired outcome and the challenges they might face are more successful than those who only visualize the positive outcome. Why? Because you're not setting yourself up for a shock when difficulties arise. You're preparing. You're rehearsing how you'll respond when things get hard. You're building resilience in advance. So when you visualize, yes, see yourself living that life you desire, but also see yourself overcoming the obstacles along the way, making it even more real, even more achievable. Rest deeper still. You are safe. You are growing. You are exactly who you need to be, right now, to become who you're meant to be. The garden is tending itself while you sleep. The compass within, navigating by your inner truth. As you lie here in the quiet darkness, imagine you're holding a compass. Not one that points north, but one that points toward your truest self. In the stillness, you can feel it pulling gently, showing you the way. Tonight, we're learning to trust that inner compass, to hear the whispers beneath the noise. There's something remarkable that happens in your brain when you make a commitment and then follow through on it, even in small ways. Neuroscientists have found that keeping promises to yourself, finishing that book you said you'd read, going to bed at the time you said, taking that walk you planned, actually strengthens the connection between your prefrontal cortex and your limbic system. In simpler terms, you're building a bridge between intention and action, between who you want to be and who you're actually being. Each kept promise, no matter how tiny, sends a signal to your subconscious: we can trust ourselves. And when you trust yourself, when you know deep down that you do what you say you'll do, everything changes. You become someone who doesn't need external validation to move forward. You become your own source of certainty. But let's be honest about something: there will be days when you don't want to keep those promises. Days when the resistance feels like a wall you can't possibly climb. This is where understanding the concept of activation energy becomes crucial. In chemistry, activation energy is the initial push needed to start a reaction. Once the reaction begins, it often sustains itself. The same is true for your desired behaviors. Starting is the hardest part. Continuing is easier. This is why people who successfully build habits use the 2-minute rule, They commit to just 2 minutes of the activity. Just 2 minutes of writing. Just 2 minutes of exercise. Often, those 2 minutes lead to 10, then 20. But even if they don't, even if you only do the 2 minutes, you've kept the promise. You've maintained the identity. You've shown up. And that matters more than you might think. Breathe in slowly, hold for a moment, and release. Feel the simplicity of this rhythm. Starting. Continuing. Beginning again. Now let's explore something that might feel counterintuitive, the power of saying no. We're often taught that growth requires saying yes, yes to opportunities, yes to challenges, yes to more. But people who successfully manifest the lives they truly want have learned the art of selective yes. Every yes to something is a no to something else. When you say yes to a commitment that doesn't align with your values or goals, you're saying no to the space, time, and energy you could invest in what truly matters. Boundaries aren't walls that keep good things out, they're containers that keep your energy focused on what you're actually trying to create. The most successful people aren't those who do the most things. They're those who do the right things and eliminate everything else. This is called essentialism, and it's the practice of doing less, but better. Your power doesn't come from being everywhere, doing everything. It comes from being deliberate, focused, intentional. Let your jaw soften. Release any tightness in your neck. You don't have to do everything. You never did. Here's a truth about transformation that isn't often discussed: it's not linear. You won't improve steadily day after day in a straight line upward. Growth comes in waves, in spirals. Some days you'll feel like you're moving backward. You'll encounter the same challenge you thought you'd already overcome. This isn't failure, it's how learning actually works. Think of it like climbing a mountain on a spiral path. Sometimes you're facing east, sometimes west. From certain angles, you might even appear to be heading downward. But you're always climbing. You're just seeing different sides of the same mountain. The challenge you're facing again isn't the same one. You're meeting it with more wisdom, more tools, more resilience than before. Trust the spiral. Trust that even when it feels like you're going backward, you're actually moving upward. There's a concept in psychology called implementation intentions, and it's one of the most practical tools for turning desires into reality. An implementation intention is a specific plan that follows an if-then format. If X happens, then I will do Y. For example, if I feel overwhelmed, then I will take 5 deep breaths. Or if it's 7 a.m., then I will write for 15 minutes. Research shows that people who use implementation intentions are 2 to 3 times more likely to follow through on their goals. Why? Because you're not relying on willpower or motivation in the moment, you've already made the decision. When the situation arises, your brain simply executes the plan. You've removed the friction of deciding. You've created a mental shortcut from trigger to action. This is how you make desired behaviors automatic over time. Sink deeper into rest. Your subconscious is absorbing these patterns, creating new pathways, new possibilities. Let's talk about something subtle but transformative: the language you use to describe your challenges. There's a significant difference between I have to and I get to. I have to go to work versus I get to go to work. One frames your life as obligation, the other as opportunity. This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending everything is wonderful. It's about recognizing that most things in your life exist because at some point, you wanted them, or because they're giving you something, even if that something is just a lesson. When you shift your language from victim to participant, you reclaim your power. You're no longer someone life is happening to, you're someone engaging with life. This linguistic shift, practiced consistently, actually rewires how your brain perceives your circumstances. What felt like burden begins to feel like choice. Now, here's something that might bring you peace. You don't need to heal everything before you can move forward. There's a pervasive belief in self-help culture that you must completely resolve your past, heal all your wounds, fix all your issues before you can create the life you want. But this is a trap that keeps people stuck in perpetual preparation, never feeling ready to begin. The truth is, you can heal and build simultaneously. You can work through old patterns while creating new ones. You can acknowledge your pain while also celebrating your progress. You're not a project that needs to be completed before life can start. You're a person, complex and whole, worthy of pursuing your dreams even while you're still growing. Progress, not perfection. Movement, not arrival. There's a fascinating phenomenon called the Pygmalion effect, the idea that higher expectations lead to higher performance. When teachers believe certain students are capable of excellence, those students tend to excel, regardless of their initial ability level. But here's the profound part, this effect works on yourself too. The expectations you hold for yourself become self-fulfilling prophecies. When you genuinely expect yourself to be capable, to figure things out, to handle what comes, you rise to meet that expectation. Your brain doesn't want to create cognitive dissonance between your beliefs and your reality, so it works to align them. This is why believing in your capacity for growth isn't naive optimism, it's strategic. You're setting an expectation that your brain will work to fulfill. Let your whole body feel heavy, supported, held. You are doing the work simply by being here, absorbing, opening. And here's something beautiful to carry with you, your presence matters. The energy you bring into a room, the kindness you show to a stranger, the courage you display when you choose growth over comfort, it ripples outward in ways you'll never fully see. When you work on yourself, you're not just changing your life, you're changing the lives of everyone you touch. Your children, your partner, your friends, even people you pass on the street, they feel your energy. When you embody growth, you give others permission to grow too. When you pursue your dreams despite fear, you show others it's possible. Your transformation is never just about you. It's a gift to the world, a stone dropped in still water, sending circles outward forever. Rest now in the knowing that every small step you take echoes in eternity. You are the compass. You are the path. You are already home. The alchemy of attention, transforming the ordinary into extraordinary. In the gentle darkness surrounding you, there's a kind of magic happening. Not the magic of fairy tales, but the magic of transformation, the quiet alchemy that occurs when you direct your attention with intention. Tonight, we're discovering that what you pay attention to isn't just what you notice. It's what you become. There's a principle that operates in every area of life, from nature to human achievement, called the Pareto Principle, or the 80-20 rule. It states that roughly 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. In your garden, 20% of your plants might produce 80% of your harvest. In your work, 20% of your activities generate 80% of your value. The implications for personal growth are profound. Most of us spread our energy thin, trying to improve everything at once, when extraordinary results come from identifying the vital few actions that create disproportionate impact. When you discover which practices, which relationships, which thoughts generate the most growth in your life and you concentrate your attention there, that's when transformation accelerates. You're not working harder, you're working on what actually matters. You're learning to distinguish between motion and progress, between busy and effective. Breathe slowly. With each exhale, release the need to do everything. You only need to do the right things. Now let's explore something you experience every single day but might not fully understand. Your emotional state isn't just a reaction to what happens. It's a filter that determines what you perceive and how you respond. Research in neuroscience reveals that your emotions prime your brain to notice certain things and overlook others. When you're anxious, your brain becomes hypervigilant to threats, real or imagined. When you're joyful, you notice possibilities and connections. This is why mood management isn't self-indulgent, it's foundational. When you deliberately cultivate positive emotional states through music, movement, gratitude, or connection, you're not just making yourself feel better in the moment. You're literally changing what your brain can perceive and therefore what actions seem possible. Two people in the exact same situation will have completely different experiences based on their emotional state. You have more control over that state than you've been taught to believe. There's a concept from Buddhist philosophy that's increasingly validated by Western psychology, the idea of beginner's mind. Beginner's mind is approaching each experience with openness, without the burden of expertise or expectation. When you've done something many times, your brain creates shortcuts, you stop noticing details, you operate on autopilot. This is efficient, but it also closes you off to new possibilities, new solutions, new ways of being. People who maintain a beginner's mind, who can look at familiar situations with fresh eyes, continue to learn and grow long after others have plateaued. The question isn't how can I become an expert? It's how can I maintain curiosity even as I gain experience? Because the moment you think you know everything about something, your relationship, your work, yourself, you stop paying attention. And what you don't pay attention to, you can't improve. Let your eyelids grow even heavier. Feel yourself surrendering more deeply into this moment, approaching it with the wonder of experiencing rest for the very first time. Here's something that might shift your entire approach to goals: the concept of approach motivation versus avoidance motivation. Avoidance motivation is moving away from something you don't want: pain, failure, judgment. Approach motivation is moving towards something you do want: growth, fulfillment, contribution. Both can generate action, but research consistently shows that approach motivation is more sustainable and leads to greater well-being. When you're driven by avoiding what you fear, you're operating from a stress response. Your creativity narrows. Your resilience diminishes. But when you're drawn toward what you desire, you're operating from inspiration. You have more energy, more persistence, more joy in the process. So examine your goals. Are you running from something or toward something? The destination might look the same, but the journey, and the person you become along the way, will be completely different. There's a powerful truth hidden in the field of quantum physics that applies to your daily life, the observer effect. At the quantum level, particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed, then they collapse into a single state. While your life isn't literally quantum, there's a parallel truth. What you observe in yourself and others tends to solidify. If you constantly observe your flaws, your failures, your inadequacies, you strengthen those patterns. But if you observe your strengths, your growth, your resilience, those become more solid, more real. This is why keeping a wins journal, where you note daily victories, no matter how small, is so transformative. You're training yourself to observe what's working. And what you observe, you amplify. Soften your tongue. Release your shoulders. Let go of any holding anywhere in your body. Let's talk about something practical that dramatically affects your success: decision fatigue. Your willpower and decision-making capacity are finite resources that deplete throughout the day. This is why successful people automate or eliminate as many trivial decisions as possible. Steve Jobs wore the same outfit daily. Barack Obama reduced his wardrobe to 2 colors. Not because they lacked imagination, but because they understood that every decision costs mental energy. When you remove unnecessary decisions from your day, what to eat for breakfast, what to wear, when to exercise, you preserve that precious decision-making capacity for what truly matters. You can design your life so that your environment and routines carry you toward your goals without requiring constant willpower. This is the difference between forcing and flowing. Now here's something that might challenge you. Growth requires grieving. When you evolve into a new version of yourself, you must release the old version. When you step into new patterns, you must let go of familiar ones, even if they weren't serving you. There's often a grief in this release that we don't honor. We expect to feel only excitement about change, so when we feel sadness or loss, we think something's wrong. But nothing's wrong. You're mourning what you're leaving behind, even if what you're leaving behind was limiting you. The version of yourself who stayed small felt safe in its own way. The familiar patterns, even painful ones, were known. Allowing yourself to grieve what you're releasing doesn't mean you're not ready for what's coming. It means you're human. And when you honor that grief instead of pushing it away, you actually move through the transition more completely. There's a concept in learning theory called desirable difficulty. Not all challenges are equal. Some difficulties frustrate without teaching. But desirable difficulties, challenges that are just hard enough to require effort but not so hard that they're impossible, actually enhance learning and retention. When something comes too easily, your brain doesn't engage deeply. You might remember it briefly, but it won't stick. But when you have to struggle a bit, when you have to retrieve information or figure something out, you create stronger neural pathways. This is why the discomfort of learning something new is actually a sign that real learning is happening. Your brain is building new architecture. So when you feel that strain of trying to understand, trying to master, trying to become, celebrate it. That sensation is growth itself. Let yourself drift even deeper now. You don't have to understand everything. You don't have to remember it all consciously. Your deeper mind is weaving these truths into your being. And here's a final thought to carry into your dreams. Your life is the sum of your attention. Whatever you consistently give your attention to grows in your experience and shapes your reality. This isn't metaphysical, it's practical. If you give your attention to problems, you become an expert in problems. If you give your attention to possibilities, you become an expert in possibilities. Both exist simultaneously. Both are true. But where your attention goes determines which truth you live inside of. So be careful, be intentional, be deliberate with this precious resource. Your attention is your life force. Spend it wisely. Invest it in what you want to grow. And watch as your inner world, and then your outer world, transforms to match. You are becoming what you pay attention to. Choose wisely. Choose lovingly. Choose you. The symphony of self, harmonizing all your parts. As you rest here, breathing gently in the darkness, imagine that you are not one single voice but an entire orchestra. Different instruments, different sounds, all part of the same beautiful composition. There's the voice of your ambition, playing boldly. The voice of your caution, playing softly. The voice of your joy, the voice of your doubt. Tonight, we're learning that growth isn't about silencing certain instruments, it's about conducting them all with wisdom and grace. There's a concept in neuroscience called neurogenesis, the creation of new brain cells. For most of the 20th century, scientists believed that you were born with all the neurons you'd ever have, and that brain cell death was irreversible. But research has shattered this myth. Your brain creates new neurons throughout your life, particularly in the hippocampus, the region associated with learning and memory. And here's what's extraordinary: certain activities dramatically increase neurogenesis: physical exercise, learning new skills, meditation, and even social connection. Every time you try something new, every time you challenge your brain with novel experiences, you're literally growing new brain cells. You're not just learning, you're physically transforming the organ that does the learning. This means that at any age, in any circumstance, you have the biological capacity to rewire, to regenerate, to become new. Breathe in possibility. Breathe out limitation. Your brain is creating new pathways with each cycle. Now let's explore something that shapes every relationship you have, including the one with yourself: attachment patterns. Psychologists have identified that the way you learn to relate to caregivers in early childhood creates templates for how you relate to others, and yourself, throughout life. Some people develop secure attachment, a sense that they're worthy of love and that others are reliable. Others developed anxious or avoidant patterns. But here's the liberating truth: attachment patterns aren't destiny. They're learned, which means they can be relearned. Through what's called earned secure attachment, you can develop the security you didn't receive early in life. You do this through consistent, caring relationships, through therapy, and through deliberately practicing self-compassion. You're not broken beyond repair. You're simply carrying patterns that once protected you but no longer serve you. And patterns can change. There's a practice used by elite athletes and performers that's equally powerful for everyday life: mental rehearsal of failure recovery. Most visualization focuses only on success, seeing yourself winning, achieving, excelling. But peak performers also visualize making mistakes and then recovering gracefully. They imagine missing the shot and then making the next one. They imagine forgetting their lines and then smoothly continuing. This prepares the nervous system for reality. Because you will stumble. You will have setbacks. And if you've only rehearsed perfection, those setbacks will destabilize you. But if you've mentally rehearsed recovering, your brain already has a pathway for resilience. You've practiced the comeback before you even needed it. Let your body sink heavier. Feel the support beneath you. You are held, even when you fall. Here's something that transforms how you experience time: the concept of time affluence versus time scarcity. Research shows that people who feel they have abundant time are happier, healthier, and more productive than those who feel time-starved, regardless of how much time they actually have. The feeling of time pressure is often about how you relate to your time, not how much of it you have. When you multitask constantly, when you fill every moment with productivity, when you rush from one thing to the next, you create the subjective experience of scarcity. But when you single task, when you build in transition moments, when you allow space between activities, you create the experience of abundance. Ironically, people who feel they have more time often accomplish more, because they're focused rather than frantic. Time isn't just a resource you manage, it's an experience you create. Now let's talk about something deeply practical: the role of environment and identity change. There's a reason why people often relapse into old habits when they return to old environments. Your surroundings are filled with triggers, visual cues, familiar patterns, associations, that automatically activate certain behaviors. This is why sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for your growth is to change your physical environment. It doesn't have to be dramatic, moving to a new city, though that can help. Sometimes it's as simple as rearranging your room, changing where you work, or taking a different route to familiar places. When your environment changes, the automatic cues change. Your brain enters a state of heightened awareness rather than autopilot. And in that awareness, you have more choice about who you want to be. Soften your face. Release any tension behind your eyes. Let yourself be exactly where you are. There's a powerful concept from acceptance and commitment therapy called willingness. It's different from wanting. You might not want to feel anxious, but you can be willing to feel it. You might not want to face a difficult conversation, but you can be willing to have it. Willingness is about opening to your experience rather than constantly fighting against what is. And here's what research shows: people who practice willingness, who stop struggling against uncomfortable emotions and instead allow them while still taking valued action, experience less suffering and achieve more of their goals. It's paradoxical. When you stop fighting your fear and instead say, "Okay, fear, you can come along while I do this brave thing," the fear loses its power to stop you. You're not waiting for the fear to leave before you act. You're acting despite its presence, which is true courage. Let's explore something about memory that affects how you perceive your progress, the peak-in rule. Research in behavioral economics shows that people judge experiences based primarily on two moments: the peak, the most intense point, and the end, rather than the overall average experience. This is why a difficult year with a wonderful ending feels better in memory than a pleasant year with a disappointing ending. You can use this knowledge to your advantage. When you complete a challenging task, a difficult week, or any period of growth, create a meaningful ending ritual. Acknowledge what you've done. Celebrate, even quietly. This shapes how your memory encodes the experience, making it more likely you'll want to repeat the process. You're not manipulating yourself. You're working with how your brain naturally creates meaning. There's something called implementation intentions that we touched on before, but let's go deeper into a related concept: habit stacking. This is the practice of attaching a new habit to an existing one, using your established routines as triggers. After I pour my morning coffee, I will write down 3 things I'm grateful for. After I brush my teeth at night, I will lay out my clothes for tomorrow. Your existing habits are already strong neural pathways. By stacking new behaviors onto them, you're essentially hitchhiking on infrastructure that's already built. You don't have to create willpower from nothing. You're leveraging momentum that already exists. This is how small habits accumulate into transformed lives, not through dramatic overhauls but through strategic additions to what you're already doing. Breathe deeply. Notice how each practice builds on the last, how small things compound into extraordinary change. And here's something that might shift your entire perspective on difficulty: the concept of anti-fragility, developed by Nassim Taleb. Most things are either fragile, they break under stress, or resilient, they withstand stress and return to their original state. But some things are anti-fragile, they actually get stronger through stress, through challenge, through chaos. Your muscles are anti-fragile, they grow stronger when you stress them with exercise. Your immune system is anti-fragile, it strengthens through exposure to pathogens. And so are you. Not in every way, not infinitely, but when you face appropriate challenges, when you stretch yourself and recover, you don't just return to baseline. You become stronger, wiser, more capable than before. This means that the difficulties you're facing aren't just obstacles to overcome. They're the very mechanism of your becoming. The pressure isn't breaking you. It's forging you into someone who can handle greater pressure, create greater impact, live a greater life. Rest in this truth: everything you're experiencing is shaping you into who you're meant to become. Even this moment. Even this breath. Even this choice to rest and receive. You are the symphony. You are the composer. You are the music itself. The threshold of transformation, standing at the edge of your becoming. You've journeyed so far tonight, through gardens and rivers, through mirrors and mountains. Now we're approaching a sacred threshold, that liminal space between who you've been and who you're becoming. Here, at the edge, everything feels both uncertain and alive with possibility. Let yourself linger here, breathing softly, as we explore the final mysteries of growth and manifestation. There's a phenomenon in psychology called post-traumatic growth, the idea that people can emerge from difficult experiences not just recovered, but fundamentally changed for the better. Researchers have found that many people who face significant challenges report increased personal strength, deeper relationships, greater appreciation for life, new possibilities they wouldn't have seen before, and even spiritual development. This isn't about glorifying suffering or pretending trauma is good. It's about recognizing that within you exists a capacity to find meaning, to grow, to transform even the most painful experiences into sources of wisdom and strength. You don't need to be grateful for the hardship, but you can be grateful for who you became because you survived it. This is the profound difference between experiencing something and letting it define you versus experiencing something and letting it refine you. Breathe into that knowing. You've survived everything that's tried to break you. And you're not just surviving, you're becoming. Now let's explore something essential about change, the concept of identity velocity. This is the speed at which you're willing to release old versions of yourself and embrace new ones. Some people hold tightly to who they've always been, even when that identity no longer serves them. They say things like, "I've always been this way," as if it's a life sentence rather than a choice. But people with high identity velocity remain fluid. They're willing to say, "That was true about me yesterday, but it doesn't have to be true about me tomorrow." This doesn't mean you lack integrity or consistency, it means you're authoring your own story rather than being imprisoned by it. The question isn't, "Who have I always been?" It's, "Who am I choosing to become?" And you can answer that question differently every single day. There's a concept from improvisation and creative work called yes, and the practice of accepting what is while building upon it. In improv, when someone introduces an idea, you don't shut it down, you accept it and add to it. This principle transforms how you approach life. When something unexpected happens, instead of resisting reality with "No, this shouldn't be happening," or "Why is this happening to me?" you can practice "Yes, this is happening, and I can respond with creativity." You're not being passive or resigned, you're being adaptive. You're working with reality rather than exhausting yourself fighting against it. This is how people navigate major life transitions with grace. They don't pretend the change isn't happening. They acknowledge it and then ask, "What's possible now that wasn't possible before?" Let your breath deepen. Feel how your body knows exactly how to breathe, even when you're not controlling it. This is trust. This is flow. Here's something that revolutionizes goal achievement: understanding the difference between systems and goals. A goal is, "I want to write a book." A system is, "I write for 30 minutes every morning." Goals are about the destination, systems are about the journey. And here's what research consistently shows: people who focus on building systems, sustainable practices and routines, are more successful than those who focus only on goals. Why? Because once you achieve a goal, what then? But a system sustains you indefinitely. A system becomes part of your identity. You're not someone who achieved a goal once, you're someone who has a practice. and practices, maintained over time, create extraordinary results almost as a side effect. The paradox is that the best way to achieve your goals is often to focus less on the goals themselves and more on becoming the kind of person who lives in alignment with those goals every single day. There's a powerful truth about human potential that often goes unrecognized. Your capacity is not fixed, it expands with use. Think of it like a container. Most people assume they have a certain sized container for stress, for learning, for love, for achievement, and that's just their natural limit. But your capacity is more like a muscle than a container. When you consistently expose yourself to slightly more than you think you can handle, more complexity, more responsibility, more vulnerability, your capacity grows. This is called progressive overload in fitness, but it applies to every dimension of life. The person who can handle massive stress or responsibility or creative challenges didn't start with a bigger container. They gradually expanded their capacity by meeting incrementally greater demands. You're more capable than you believe. And you become even more capable by acting at the edge of your current capacity. Soften into the possibility. You are more expansive than you know. Let's talk about something crucial for sustaining change: the role of community and accountability. There's extensive research showing that people who share their goals with support of others are significantly more likely to achieve them. But here's what makes accountability truly powerful: it's not about judgment or shame when you fall short. It's about having witnesses to your becoming. When someone else knows what you're working toward, when they check in with genuine care, something shifts. You're no longer navigating your growth in isolation. Your commitment becomes real in a way it can't be when it's only inside your head. This is why groups focused on change, from recovery programs to mastermind groups, are so effective. You're not just accountable to others, you're part of a collective energy of growth. Their progress inspires you. Your progress inspires them. You rise together. Now here's a concept that addresses one of the biggest obstacles to manifestation: cognitive dissonance. This is the discomfort you feel when your actions don't align with your beliefs, or when you hold two conflicting beliefs simultaneously. Your brain desperately wants consistency, so when there's dissonance, something has to give. Most people resolve this by changing their beliefs to match their actions. I wanted to exercise, but I didn't, so I must not really care about health. But you can use cognitive dissonance as a tool for growth by intentionally creating it in the opposite direction. When you take actions aligned with who you want to become, even before you fully believe you're that person, your brain experiences dissonance. I'm acting like someone disciplined, but I don't think of myself as disciplined. Over time, to resolve this discomfort, your brain shifts your self-concept to match your actions. You literally act your way into a new way of thinking. Identity follows behavior more often than behavior follows identity. There's something called temporal discounting, our tendency to value immediate rewards more than future ones. This is why it's hard to choose the workout over the couch, the healthy meal over the indulgent one, the long-term investment over the immediate pleasure. Your brain is wired to prioritize the present. But here's how successful people overcome this: they make the future feel more real and immediate. They vividly imagine their future self, what that person's day looks like, how they feel, what they're capable of. When you regularly connect with your future self, when you can feel that person as real rather than abstract, decisions become easier. You're no longer choosing between present you and some vague future concept. You're choosing between present you and a real person you care about, future you. And when you care about that person, when you can feel them, you naturally make choices that serve them. Let yourself feel that future self now, right here in this moment. They're not far away. They're being born with every breath, every choice, every moment of awareness like this one. And here's a final insight before we rest, the concept of satisficing versus maximizing. Maximizers try to make the perfect decision every time, analyzing every option, always wondering if there's something better. Satisficers set a threshold of good enough, and once they reach it, they move forward. Research consistently shows that satisficers are happier and less anxious than maximizers, even though maximizers often achieve objectively better outcomes. Because life isn't just about optimal outcomes, it's about peace, satisfaction, and forward momentum. Perfectionism masquerades as high standards, but often it's just fear dressed up as excellence. When you can say, "This is good enough, and I'm moving forward," you free enormous energy for actually living your life rather than endlessly deliberating about it. Progress over perfection. Always progress over perfection. Rest now in the knowing that you are enough. Your efforts are enough. Your pace is enough. Everything you need is already within you, already unfolding, already becoming real. You are standing at the threshold. And with each breath, you're stepping through. The gentle return, homecoming to your truest self. And now, dear traveler, we've reached the end of our journey together. But not really an ending, more like a gentle spiral back to the beginning, where you discover that home was always here, always within you, always waiting for your return. Let your whole body soften now, releasing any last threads of effort. Your jaw can relax completely. Your tongue can rest soft in your mouth. Your shoulders can drop away from your ears, heavy and still. There's nothing left to do. Nothing to achieve. Nothing to become in this moment. You are already whole. As you lie here in the peaceful darkness, imagine yourself back in that garden we visited at the start, the garden of your mind, the landscape of your becoming. Look how much has grown. Some plants you recognize. Others are still mysterious, their blooms not yet revealed. But everything is exactly as it should be. The garden doesn't rush. Seeds know their season. Roots know their depth. Everything unfolds in its own perfect timing. You've learned so much tonight. About neuroplasticity and identity, about systems and spirals, about the way your thoughts shape your reality and your attention creates your world. But knowledge alone isn't transformation. Knowledge becomes wisdom only when it's lived, breathed, embodied in the quiet moments of choosing growth over comfort, compassion over criticism, presence over perfection. And here's the gentle truth you can carry into sleep: transformation doesn't require you to remember everything. Your conscious mind may forget these words, but your deeper mind, the one that's always listening, always learning, always growing, has absorbed it all. Like seeds planted in fertile soil, These truths are already taking root beneath the surface of your awareness. You don't need to try. You don't need to force. You simply need to trust. Trust that the person you were when you began listening tonight is not the same person drifting towards sleep now. Something has shifted, subtle as moonlight, but real. You've chosen to spend this time investing in yourself, in your growth, in your becoming. And that choice, that simple, beautiful choice, has already changed everything. Think of how far you've traveled, not just tonight but in your life. All the versions of yourself you've been. The child who didn't know what was possible. The teenager discovering your power and your pain. The young adult stumbling through those first brave steps toward independence. Each version of you was necessary. Each one built the foundation for who you are now. And who you are now is building the foundation for who you'll be tomorrow. There's no deadline for your transformation. No finish line where suddenly you'll be complete. You are not a project to be completed but a garden to be tended, a river to flow with, a story still being written. Every day is a new page. Every breath is a new beginning. Every moment offers the quiet invitation to choose again, choose growth, choose kindness, choose the life that's calling to you. Breathe in deeply now, gathering all the peace of this moment. And breathe out slowly, releasing anything that doesn't serve your highest good. Let it go. Let it all go. You've learned that your brain is endlessly capable of change, creating new pathways, new possibilities, new ways of being at any age. You've learned that failure is not your enemy but your teacher, that discomfort is not a sign you're doing something wrong but a sign you're doing something new. You've learned that your beliefs are not facts but habits, and habits can be gently, consistently, lovingly changed. You've learned that manifestation is not magic but alignment, bringing your thoughts, emotions, and actions into harmony with what you truly desire. You've learned that your attention is your most precious resource, that what you focus on expands, that you're always choosing, even when it doesn't feel like it, what reality you'll inhabit. You've learned that rest is not the opposite of productivity but its essential partner. That systems matter more than goals. That your capacity expands with use. That you can heal and build simultaneously, that you don't need to be fixed before you can move forward. That progress, always progress, is more valuable than perfection. And perhaps most importantly, you've learned that you are not alone in this. Your growth ripples outward, touching lives you'll never know, giving permission to others to become who they're meant to be, simply by witnessing your courage to become who you're meant to be. As sleep begins to wrap around you like a warm blanket, let yourself feel gratitude, not for being perfect, not for having it all figured out, but simply for being here. For choosing to invest this time in yourself. For believing, even in the smallest way, that change is possible. That you are possible. Tomorrow, you'll wake to a new day. The same world, perhaps, but you'll meet it differently. Some of tonight's lessons will rise to consciousness when you need them. Others will work quietly in the background, shifting your perceptions, informing your choices, guiding you toward the life that's always been waiting for you to claim it. You don't need to remember everything. You don't need to do everything. You simply need to trust that you're exactly where you need to be, learning exactly what you need to learn, becoming exactly who you're meant to become. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, the ancient wisdom tells us. But it also continues with a single step. And another. And another. Not giant leaps. Not dramatic transformations. Just one small, brave, consistent step in the direction of your truth. And right now, this moment, as your breathing deepens and slows, as your body grows heavier and your mind grows quieter, you are taking that step. You are choosing rest, integration, renewal. You are choosing to trust the process. You are choosing yourself. Let your eyes remain closed, soft and still. Let your breath find its own rhythm, natural and effortless. You are safe. You are held. You are exactly enough, exactly as you are, in this precise moment. The garden is growing, even in the darkness. The river is flowing, even as you sleep. The story is being written, even in your dreams. And you, beautiful, brave, becoming you, are already everything you need to be. Sleep now, dear one. Sleep deeply. Sleep peacefully. Let your subconscious weave tonight's wisdom into the fabric of who you're becoming. Let your dreams carry you forward into new possibilities, new perspectives, new versions of yourself. Everything is unfolding perfectly. Everything is exactly as it should be. You are growing, even now. You are transforming, even now. You are becoming, even now. And tomorrow, when you wake, you'll rise as someone who invested in their own becoming. Someone who chose growth. Someone who trusted the journey. But for now, just rest. Just breathe. Just be. You are enough. You have always been enough. And you are so deeply, beautifully loved, by the universe, by life itself, and most importantly, by the wisest part of yourself that knows, beyond any doubt, that you are worthy of every dream you hold in your heart. Sleep well, traveler. Your journey continues in the morning. But for now, rest.